Hey, this is Steve with Dabble Lab, and this is another episode of Dabble with Experts. And in this episode, I am joined by Andrew Freed with
Hi, bro.
IBM, and he is also the author of Creating Virtual Assistants. And today, he is going to be taking us through. What are you going to be taking us through today, Andrew?
Yeah, so today we're going to build our first virtual assistant. We're going to pretend that we are working for Fictitious Inc., so some just generic retailer who wants to use a virtual assistant to handle their customer service.
Okay, cool. Cool. And we are, you're going to be sharing your screen. So we'll be following along, and I will be asking questions as we go, I'm sure. So hopefully that's not a problem.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, you gotta give me the share, it looks like.
Oh, okay. Let's get that done. There you go. You should have the power.
Here we go. All right. So I've started by logging into my account at cloud.ibm.com. And I've got a list of my cloud services that I can click on. I've got a Watson Assistant instance already created. So I'm going to switch over to that. And when I get to Watson Assistant, the area, I'm shown something for assistance, and I can click on this and I see skills. So basically, Assistant is our integration layer, and then skills is our dialogue layer.
On the account, for anybody that might be new to using the IBM cloud, is there a free tier if somebody wants to dabble with this and get started, or what? How does that work, real quick?
Absolutely. So there is a free tier. You can see I'm using it. It's called a Lite. So all of our services, or at least most of them, have a Lite version. Everything you're seeing today, you can do on the Lite version. And it's completely free, no credit card, anything like that, just an email address.
Okay, cool. Great. All right. Sorry for the interruption. I was just curious about that piece.
Never a problem. So let's create a skill. So I've got several different options, but today I'm going to do a dialogue skill. And we're going to call this our Fictitious Inc. skill. And this is our customer service example. So we'll see it gets created pretty quickly. We're shown a blank screen. So right now, this assistant doesn't know much of anything. And we're invited to create intents. So an intent is essentially an encapsulation of what does the user mean when they're saying something. So we've got a couple options here. We can create our own intents and start training right away. We can import something that we've saved from somewhere else. But what I want to show today is this third option called the content catalog. So you can think of the content catalog as our sample data repository. So there's lots of very cool pre-built content that you can already use. You can see there's intent groupings for banking, for COVID-19, customer care, e-commerce, et cetera, et cetera. I can very quickly add this to my skill. You can see it's been added. Behind the scenes, Watson is training. If we click the demo, we're going to see that Watson is training. So while it's training, let's take a look at what we've actually done. So customer care, the sample content comes with some things that, as a generic customer care assistant you might need. So if you think, hey, what does almost every store have? Well, some concept of appointments, some concept of, hey, how do I get in contact with you? How do I find a job? When are you open, right? And where are you located? And so we've got lots of stuff like this, pre-built into the solution. You can see this sort of kinds of example questions that have been trained for each of these. And what this gives us is the ability to recognize these different intents without doing any work on our own. So we'll do a demo here in just a second. I believe we should be done training at this point.
Can they, it looks like, so it actually pulls in, it looked like a whole collection of intents, huh? So
Yes,
each of these categories, and can those be extended? So like if an utterance isn't recognized, can you add utterances and retrain them if?
absolutely. So let's give it a go. So what would you like to ask a question, Steve?
Sure, what are your hours?
Okay, what are your hours? So we're going to see here that, hey, it knew that was a customer care store hours question. We can also inspect its confidence, and we can see 0.96. So it is exceptionally confident that that is a store hours question.
Okay,
So we didn't need to do any sort of training there.
okay, got it. And then you would just handle that request, I'm assuming. Uh,
Yes.
got it.
Yeah. So what we've seen so far is that the thing can identify intents. But if you look at the response here, it's saying, hey, I actually didn't understand your question, right? And the reason is that we haven't configured the assistant to respond to any intents yet. We've just gotten default dialogue. So let's check out the dialogue now. So by default, we get 2 nodes for free, right? We get a welcome node, which is the beginning of the conversation. It says, hello, how can I help you? We can customize this. Let's say, welcome to Fictitious Inc. And we have another node here. It's called anything else. And basically, this is sort of our fallback node. So if nothing else in our decision tree is true, we're gonna hit this node, and we're gonna cycle through the responses. You see, we've got a couple different responses here.
Got it.
So coming into it, there's only two conditions we check. One is at the beginning of the conversation. One is at something else. So let's ask another question like, where is a store close to me? Right, it says, okay, store location question, but again, still doesn't know how to respond to that. So the first simplest thing we can do is let's configure some static responses so that we get something a little bit more satisfying than these, these responses that we're getting. So I'm going to create a response here, and I want it to fire before anything else has a chance to run. Let's call this store hours. I'm going to do customer care store hours. So let's just say generically, we're open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. And let's do another node for the store location. I've got some autocomplete here. So, I hit in pound, that gives me all the intents. And now I can scroll down to the intent I wanted. So this is store location. I'll say we have stores at 123 Maple Street, 456 Elm Street. Elm Drive, let's do. All right, so we can test this thing out. I've cleared this thing out, and now you can see we've updated the greeting message. Now it says, welcome to Fictitious Inc. And let's ask your question again, which was,
yeah.
you're out. You know what, Steve? I'm going to change it up on you. Just when are you open tomorrow? So I just want to prove that it can keep, these are things that it hasn't seen. Again, very high confidence on that.
Yeah.
And now we see, hey, we're open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Let's see, where is a store nearby? And so it says, and now it says, right, we have stores at 123 Maple Street and 456 Elm Drive. So this is like the simplest form of question and answer. We've got a static condition. We've got a static response. And we can do these for each of the different intents that we loaded. So earlier we loaded 18 different intents. We could do 18 different responses, and it's kind of built the same way.
Got it.
So go ahead.
I was going to ask, can you also process a request with code and then respond? So let's say, for instance, I want to call an API to look up
Yes,
a store, something along those lines.
absolutely. So yes, you can. We have a capability called webhooks,
Okay.
and I think most of the providers have some sort of capability like this, where instead of a dialogue response, you go out to some API, you process the API response, then use that to respond to the user.
Got it. So it sends probably like a JSON request to the API endpoint. You do
Yes.
with that and respond back with some JSON format that it's going to understand and sort of continue on with, I'm assuming.
Exactly. Yes.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
And so that's a great point, Steve. We're going to have that sort of capability implied in this demo. You know, in the short time we've got, it's hard to code the whole
Yeah.
whole back end up, but we will definitely be building as if we've got that behind the scenes.
Got it. Yeah, no, this looks really straightforward, easy to use.
Yeah. So let's make it a little bit more interesting. So we've asked a couple of very simple questions. Let's ask a question. Where is the Maple store? And again, it knows how to answer that question. It knows it's a store location question, but actually the response is a little bit unsatisfying here because we specifically asked for the Maple store and it's telling us about Maple and Elm. So let's build a little bit more intelligence into this assistant and let's not just give a single response for a store location, but let's target it if the user actually asks a specific location question. So we're going to supplement our intent training with something called entities. And we're going to use entities to capture the different variations on these store locations. So we've got a Maple store and an Elm store. So let's create a couple entities here. And we said it was Elm Drive, right? I'm going to add one of those. And I'm going to add a Maple. Maple Street, right? And Maple Street. So we can see behind the scenes, Watson is training already. So we're going to give it a second to catch up. But one of the things we'll look at is we've got this cool thing enabled called fuzzy matching. Essentially, this fuzzy matching enables us a little bit of resilience in case the user spells something wrong. So we've given lots of examples of what the store locations look like, but we're not going to be 100% strict about getting the spelling exactly right. If it looks close enough to Maple Street, we're going to call it Maple.
Okay.
So again, still training, but let's code the dialogue responses. So let's do location Maple. And we're going to say if we detect the store location of Maple, we'll say that store is at 123 Maple Street. So I have to spell it right as the designer.
This is cool. So this is like conditional responses for the intent.
Exactly. So I got to do store location Elm. This store is at 456 Elm Drive. And I'm going to take the condition. I'm going to take the response off of this node. I don't want the parent to respond anymore. I'm going to evaluate children nodes instead. And I'm going to add a generic condition yet. Store location.
Is this sort of a fallback for the intent? So if it doesn't match one of the other ones, or do they just go sequentially?
Exactly. So you can think of the dialogue is evaluating top to bottom and then left to right. So actually, let me trace it through for you because I think you see exactly where it's going. But let's ask it a question here. Where is the Maple store? Oops, I misspelled it, but it didn't matter. It picked up that it was the Maple store and it showed me this is at 123 Maple Street. I've got this cool little tracer icon here, and it's going to tell me exactly what happened. So it highlights over here on the left-hand side in blue what happened. It said, first, I went to the store location guy. And he said that was true. And then he said, well, I had to evaluate my children node to figure out what to do next. So I found store location first, I found the maple second, and that's how I responded.
That is really nice. So what would happen? So if you said something like Oak Street, which we don't have, right? Then that would go to, I'm assuming, store location generic.
Exactly, exactly. So you know, you mistakenly thought there was an Oak store. It responds, here's the generic response. We've got the two stores, Maple and Elm.
Got it, got it, got it. So, yeah, this is great. I don't think I've seen this on some of the other platforms that I've looked at where, at least where it's this easy. I think usually you would do this in code where you would get the request would contain the intent and then any entities that were extracted. And then you would sort of use code to decide what to respond with based on that. But this is nice. This is a lot more user friendly.
And I love the ability to trace it through to see exactly what happened. There's no stack trace, right? Any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, this is really nice.
All right, well, so let's who was it used to say, let's kick it up a notch? Let's try something, you know, even a little bit harder.
All right, let's do it.
Perhaps not harder, but perhaps a little bit more, yeah, a little bit more involved.
Yeah,
so
for me, because I'm not doing anything too. So,
so that's right. So you know, like any other place, Fictitious Inc., they've got user accounts, user ID and password. And I don't know about you, Steve, but I never remember my password to anything. So password resets is something they're going to have to deal with a lot. And with a password reset, you know, if I ask for a password reset, you probably don't just want to give it to me, right? You probably want to do some sort of verification that you know, I am who I say I am. I've provided some sort of information to you that gives you assurance that, okay, this is a good idea. I should actually do the password reset. So we're going to do 3 things for the password reset. We're going to ask the person for their user ID. We're going to ask for their date of birth, and we're going to ask them a security question. Okay. And if we pass all 3 steps, we'll go ahead and reset that password. And otherwise, you know, we won't do it. So we need a couple things here. So I'm going to go back to my favorite entities here. The first thing we need is a user ID. So user ID. Instead of doing a list, I'm going to do a pattern here, a regular expression pattern. I'm going to call it a valid user ID pattern. We're going to say for Fictitious Inc. that all of their user IDs follow a single pattern. I pre-canned the regex. I can't remember them. But this pattern is 4 letters followed by 4 to 12 letters followed by 1 to 3 numbers. All right. Yeah. So you can imagine that, hey, even if they don't, you know, your company doesn't fit that pattern, you can find some sort of pattern usually for user IDs.
Sure. So yeah, so you could use any regex here, right?
Yes. Yes. So we're going to do that for user IDs. Oops, I need to keep the chain. I need to save that first. The second thing I need is a date. Now, if you've been around computing for any length of time, you know dates are a giant pain in the neck. You don't want to roll your own dates. Fortunately, we've got some built-in stuff that you can use. There's an entity here called date. So I'm going to import that into my assistant. And now it's going to recognize dates. I'm going to use that for my date of birth. And the last one is the security question. I'm going to do that slightly differently. I'm going to hold just a short surprise on that one. So we've got sort of the background bits. Because we added entities, Watson Assistant wants to go ahead and start training again. But we've got work to do. We need to code up the dialog flow. So let's start that out. Password. And we're gonna trigger on this built-in intent, called profile password. And because we're starting a dialog flow, we're going to give the user an indication that, hey, you know, there's going to be a couple things going on here. So let's start with sure. I can reset your password. I'll need to ask you a few questions. First, what is your user ID? Right. So just pointing out that there's a couple questions is something nice to the user so that they know there's an end in sight. It may be jarring to them if by the time we get to the second, third question, they're like, are you going to reset this thing or not? So we're giving them just a little indication that we're actually, we're still doing something. Right. So,
Yeah.
yep. So let's go ahead and collect the user ID. Set user ID. So if we recognize that entity, so we've got the user ID and we're gonna say only if it's valid. We'll say, great. What's your date of birth? And I said great, just so again, I'm acknowledging that I've done something. If I just ask for the date of birth, they're like, did the user ID work or not? Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. So some sort of positive thing. So next bit, password reset. Birth. We're gonna say if we recognize this time a date. So in here, I'm just going to code that we've got a date format. If I had some API validation, I might actually go and look this up now. But for now, I'm just going to collect this information, make sure it at least conforms.
Okay.
So I'm going to use a different acceptance. I got it. Last question. What is your favorite book?
Is there a way to echo back without writing code? So like, got it, whatever the date is, something like that in here. Like, can you use what was recognized like as a variable or something?
There is. I don't have the syntax on hand for this one.
Okay.
But I do have it for the next example. So you'll see it. You'll see it there.
Perfect.
But yeah, thanks. Excellent question. All right. So I've coded the date of birth. Now I've asked the security question. Here it's hard coded as what's your favorite book. Again, I could have looked this up with an API, but for simplicity, I'm just asking a hard coded question. And this is going to be the last part.
And we want to validate that last question to be creating virtual assistants, right?
Oh, you gave away the joke, but yes. Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's great. I'm glad you have such a strong sense of humor. You saw where this is going. So yes, that is my little gag here. So, but security question, you have to like the book. Okay. I'm resetting your password. You'll get a notification or an email notification in 5 minutes, something like that. Again, like you said earlier, Steve, hitting the API, this is where I would actually do it, right? And we've sort of left out the error handling. Obviously, for each of these, I would prefer to add an error handling condition, but let's go ahead and test that happy path out.
Drop down there where it says text, is that where you would like toggle that to say like webhook or, oh, I see. Got it.
So I've got a couple here, and then the webhook it's actually a separate one altogether.
Okay.
So down here, yep, I can call out to a webhook. Yep.
Gotcha.
All right. So let's see. I forgot my password. So it recognized that statement. It says I can reset your password, but I've got a few questions. So I'm going to type in my user ID. You'll notice it detected it was a user ID. It said I couldn't find an intent for this statement, but in fact, an intent doesn't matter for this question. We knew something like a user ID was expected, and we hit that format. That 6 letters and 3 numbers matches the regular expression we did earlier, and it's moved on to what's your date of birth. We're following down this chain very nicely.
So in this case here, I'm guessing it's not using an NLU, right? It's just using the pattern matching that was set up with the regex.
Yep. So this one is just the regex. What we showed earlier with the store location, the Maple store location, was mostly dictionary, but that fuzzy matching gives you a little bit of NLU.
Okay.
There are NLU options as well. but so far that we've only shown these two, I always thought the built-in or starter.
Got it.
All right, so let's enter a date of birth here. You can guess it's not my real date of birth. So we've moved on to the conversation again. We passed this node, and now it's asking what's your favorite book. So hopefully this is true for you as well. But we're saying, okay, yep, reset your password. You'll get a notification in a couple minutes. So this was a process flow. We understood the user's intent right away, but it took us a little bit of time till we could actually do it, because we wanted to make sure, we validated who they were. We got a little bit of information out of them. We could have gone to that webhook to actually do it, but you can start seeing here how you can, get fairly detailed into a process flow. And even this one was, not too bad. It was just 3 pieces of information.
When somebody's in a flow like that, and are they able to break out of that flow and just like hit one of the other intents, or do they need to complete that flow? So like, let's say that I was on, what's your date of birth? And I said, like, what are your store hours, or what are your store locations? What would happen?
Yeah, so this is called digressing, when a user essentially changes topics or changes flows. So that is supported here. We can essentially any intent you want to digress into, you have to enable it. But it's a simple check mark on the intent. I can actually just show it. I think it's on, yeah. So I can change the default, change the digression settings on any of these different nodes. I can go into this node, go away from this node, etc. One way that we use digressions a lot is to enable opt-out. So, say you're, 2 questions into the password reset and you say, forget this, I want to talk to a human, right? You're not trapped until you finish this thing. You can always get out.
Got it. Yeah, that was really my main question, is like, once you get into that flow, can you get out of that flow?
Yep.
And on the cascading or the child nodes there, so I'm assuming if you set it up like that, they're going to go, there's going to be a dependency. So I would have to provide the user ID before the date of birth, before the security question.
Yes.
Is it possible to set something up where there are like optional questions where you wouldn't have to necessarily answer them? So if you're collecting information or something along those lines?
Yes. So there's a couple different ways of doing this. So I've just shown a very explicit path where I've said it very much must be the first one, the user ID, then the date of birth, and then the security question. You may not jump around. You may not do anything like that. So let's, this is great, Steve. Again, you've been prescient. You've seen what the 4th demo is. So the next thing I want to show is creating an appointment.
Okay.
And when I create an appointment, think about what I need for an appointment. I need to know where is the appointment. I need to know a day. I need to know a time. And really, it doesn't matter what order you give them to me. But in the end, I want to get to these 3 things to make an appointment. But there's absolutely no need to be so structured about it. So let's go back to our entities, because we've got store location, we've got date, we didn't have time. So let's go ahead and add time here so that we can do this appointment. And we're going to do appointments using a capability called slots, which helps us do this stuff in arbitrary order. So I'm going to enable the slots. That's something I have to do in this customization node. And you see we've got a slightly different format here of what's going on. So I still do the intent capture. I still make sure, if it recognizes the appointment's intent, then I'm going to do this. But instead of a very static response, I'm checking for things. Right. So the first thing I want to check for is the store location. By default, it says, hey, I'm going to stuff this back into a context variable for you so that you can play it back to the user.
Okay.
But if someone asks for an appointment and they don't tell me where, I need to ask them a question, right? So I'm going to ask them, hey, where do you want this appointment? I'm able to set if it's a required or an optional. Where did I go? Hit the wrong button. Sorry. So made it required. I can make it required or optional. I need, what did I say I needed? I needed a date. I'm going to store that again into the context variable. And if they don't give me a date, I'm going to ask them, well, what day do you want to come in? And the last thing, I need a time, right? So I need a time for the appointment. Again, a context variable, again, a question. If they don't give me this, I'm going to ask for the time. And I'm going to play some sort of response after I fill all this stuff in. So I've got this one again pre-canned because I couldn't remember the syntax. But let me play back for you, Steve, what's happening here. So at the end, I'm going to say, great, we set your appointment for store location, which I'm going to pull out of this variable. I'm going to tell you what date it was. And instead of giving you the machine readable version of it, I'm going to give you the human, formatted version of the date. And same thing for the time. All right, so let's try this thing out now. I need to make an appointment. All right, so it says, great, we can make an appointment. Where do you want it? I want it at Elm. What day would you like to come in? Tomorrow, please. And so a couple cool things that it did here. Tomorrow, March 31st, very nice from tomorrow. It knew the please has nothing to do with anything, so it didn't worry about that. I gave a little bit of extra information. And then what time of day works best? 11 a.m. All right, so to say, great, we set your appointment for Elm 331 at 11 a.m. We've been giving information one piece at a time. So let's say I needed to make an appointment at Elm Street for 9 p.m. It's saying, hey, I already got a store location. I already got a date. Or I'm sorry, I already got a time. What day would you like to come in tomorrow? And now, I didn't ask the user 3 questions. I asked the user 1 question because when they first told me they needed the appointment, they gave me almost everything I needed.
Yeah, that's cool. And you didn't do any training you didn't have to specify any of your own utterances that included that. That's all
Exactly.
just baked in. That's really nice.
Exactly.
That is very nice.
So I want to show you and the viewers one more thing, Steve. We talked earlier about trying to get out of the system. Something that's very related to that is the assistant's not going to understand everything that you say, right? And at some point, if you're not getting the experience that you want, the assistant isn't helping you out, there should be a way to let people out of here. So first, we'll show what's happening now. If I say something that it's not trained on, tell me a joke. I can ask it this a bunch of times, and you can see that we're just kind of cycling. Like, we're not getting anywhere. It's not getting anywhere. We don't want to do that. So most people, when they build these assistants, they do something called a 2 strikes rule or a 3 strikes rule. Yep. The idea being, hey, if you hit a certain number of misunderstandings, let's get the user out of here. Let's get them something else. So what we're going to do to do that is we're going to keep track of how many times the user is misunderstood, and we will conditionally respond to the user based on this counter. So we're going to show another capability, context variables. So I'm going to keep track of the misunderstood count. At the beginning of the conversation, I'll set it to 0. And anytime I hit an anything else node, I'm going to increment it. I'm actually going to build a new anything else node for this. I'll call it misunderstood. And if it hits the callback condition of anything else, I'm going to increment that variable. And again, I've got the syntax here. This one, not too bad. This Spring expression language is the syntax we've got behind here. Basically, we're going to reference a variable, increment it by 1. I'm going to add 2 child nodes. The first is 2 strikes. And I'm going to say if the misunderstood count is greater than or equal to 2, I'm sorry. Sorry, we keep misunderstanding. Other, you can call our phone line for additional. Right, at 1-888-555-HELP. Here we do, in a longer demo, we could actually show an integrated handoff to some, human-backed chat. But at the very least, we can play a message like, well, look, we understand that we're not getting anywhere. So we're going to give this to you. I'm going to take this existing node, I'm going to move it below here. So now I've got, and I don't want to respond. So when I hit the misunderstood, I'm going to count how many times I've misunderstood. If it's 2 strikes, I'm going to let him out. If it's anything else, I'm going to cycle through these things. So again, I'm going to prove that it works. I'll do the tell me a joke, didn't understand, tell me a joke, 2nd strike. I'm sorry, we keep misunderstanding each other. Right, and so this is very good to use if someone's just, you're just not speaking the same language. If someone's angry, if someone's said, let me out of here, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You want to enable an escape hatch, and this is a very quick demo of how you might do that.
Yeah, this is great. So I mean, you really have a lot of control over the flow that is, at least from the other platforms that I've dabbled with and used. A lot of what you're showing here requires code, actual, getting in and handling that on the webhook side. But you can do, yeah, this is really cool. Quite a bit without any code, it looks like.
Exactly. Yep, very quick to test it, try it out. Quick iterations. It's pretty cool.
In this, so behind this, is there so you can export this bot? I know you showed earlier that you could import. So would this all be saved like as a JSON schema or something like that?
Exactly. Yes.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. Yeah, this is really great. So how deep do you get in the book? Do you I know you said when we started, this is just sort of a piece of what comes out of the book.
Yep.
Who would you say would be your target audience? Would these be the reader? Would they be people just getting started with building bots? More advanced?
Yeah. So it's definitely for the starting out crowd. And I've basically shown most of chapter 2, which is the sort of the building blocks of the dialogue, the intents, the entities, and the responses. And lots of chapters around the process that goes into this. So I was dropping hints around, like in the password reset flow, how, I didn't just say, what's your date of birth, right? I gave the user some indication. So there's a chapter on, friendly dialogue, how you can help the user have a better experience. There's chapters on how do you train these new intents. You said earlier, how do I customize them? Well, you can absolutely customize them. How do you find the data if you didn't have this awesome built-in sample catalog? How do you prove that these intents actually worked? We were lucky on our whenever we tried new questions here, it understood them, but that's not always going to be the case, right? You're going to have to customize some of your intents. And how do you test and prove that your training is working? So there's lots of chapters on all the different aspects of it. Just sitting here and coding is just one part of it.
So could somebody pick this up that has not written code before and build a bot, pick the book up, that is, and get through it? Maybe somebody has an idea or has the requirements of what they want, but
yes,
is not a programmer or a coder.
Yes. Yep. That is absolutely my intention. as well as if you're on a team, because frequently, you don't build these things by yourself. There's someone who knows design, someone who knows your brand, someone who knows your processes, and it's usually group exercise to get these done. So I've also tried to write it so that you understand why why the broader team is there and what everyone is doing.
Yeah, this is great. And last question for you, and then we can wrap it up. But when is the book available now? And if so, where do we send users to get a copy, or is it coming soon? I think you said, is that right?
So early access is available now. It's on manning.com. Again, creating virtual assistants. I think right now the first 5 chapters are out. It's going to be 12 chapters at release, and the expected publication date is in September.
Great, that's great. So we'll definitely link to that. Hey, Andrew, thanks so much for sharing this. This was really great, and I am personally looking forward to dabbling with Watson a bit more myself. I looked at it a while back, but it's come a long way from when I looked at it. So this is great. Again, really appreciate your time. We will share the link, and thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, we want to thank each and every single one of you for being here and joining our Dabble with Experts with Andrew Freed. As a thank you, Andrew and the Manning have extended to all of you watching this a 40% discount code for all their products on the website. The discount code is PODDABBLE19, and I've copied and pasted that on the chat, and there's also a link where you can redeem it. Throughout the live, we also had 4 questions for you guys to answer, and whoever answered it correctly first will also get a free book from Andrew. So, the first question was, can you use an API to respond to a customer question? The answer was yes. And Piyush Chandel, congratulations, you were the winner for that question. Question number 2 was, what is the name of the mechanism in IBM Watson Assistant that allows you to call an API? And that is called webhook. Congratulations to Venkat Amit, who answered correctly. The third one was, what is fuzzy matching? And that is what allows for correct replies even when a user types something incorrectly. And Monish Bastanwal, sorry if I mispronounced your name, you're the winner for this. And finally, question number 4, what happens if someone asks the store hours for an inexisting store location? And Startup Sanatana answered correctly. She said it will respond gracefully, so it will just give a standard response. All winners, please email me at daniela@dabblelab.com. That email is also here on the chat, and I will send you instructions on how to redeem it along with the code. If you really, really want a free book and you didn't win one today, it's not over yet. Please go to Twitter and tweet tagging us and using hashtag Dabble to win, and share your favorite part of this video or how you plan to use what you learned here with us and with Andrew today. We are going to be announcing the winner this Friday, June 4th. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it, to subscribe to our channel, to share with your friends, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Dabble. So Heaney will be with us on Friday, dabbling live. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.